What a weird time to be alive. From the internet, phones, AI, and technologies advancing fast, to the geopolitical tension, wars, destruction of the environment, and the growing distrust in the government. From the questioning of the medical, financial, and media systems, to the psychological depths of mental health, religion, meaning, and purpose. And yet, at the same time, we are witnessing a widespread evolution of humanity. A shift in what our basic human needs are, not just for survival, but to feel whole. Redefining basic needs not just for food, shelter, and safety, but mental clarity, nervous system regulation, connection, and purpose. Co-evolving with this unprecedented rate of technological advancements, the collective conscious has nothing else to do but question, explore, and expand. People are not just asking how to live, but they're also asking why. All these times feel rapid, chaotic, and flashy. It is time itself that is not linear, but cyclical. History does not repeat word for word, but it does through patterns and themes. And because of that, we can look back to see and learn, so we can learn to flow with life and time itself, and how to evolve into a greater future. To see how these echoes through time, how past civilizations navigated and transformed, and what this cycle, this timeline, is teaching us and moving towards. The cyclical nature of time and civilization allows us to see patterns of societal, structural, thoughts, art, and into their perspectives. And while these circular patterns do seem to happen across history, traditions, space, and time, they still play out in their unique ways, while following the same rhythm. The study of history explains that the cycle begins at the Foundation Age, a formative period. This is the phase where a new civilization, culture, or worldview is being built from the ground up, usually coming after a collapse or major disruption. The old systems are gone. Certainty is low. Identity is being formed. The institutions are being created, relying on mythology and symbolic narratives. Examples of this was the post-Roman Europe, with Christianity reorganizing society, monasteries preserving knowledge, and feudal systems developing. The early Vedic period in India, with the foundations for yoga, Vedanta, and Ayurveda, and even post-World War II nations, like Japan, India after independence, or even newly formed African states. Foundational ages can look messy, but they shape everything to come. This leads to the classical or the golden age. As once the culture has stable identity, shared myths, functioning institutions, and basic cohesion, it shifts into this era, where institutions function, identity is shared and unquestioned, borders are relatively stable, and when art becomes refined, philosophy deepens, and science organizes. Knowledge becomes systemized. Examples of this would be like classical Greece, with their philosophy from people like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, the mathematics of Pythagoras and Euclid, and art focusing on human form and proportion. Or the Han Dynasty in China, with key features of Confucian philosophy and institutionalized, standardized language and governance, and the advancements in medicine, astrology, and science. Another golden age is the Gupta Empire in India, where achievements of mathematics, astronomy, literature, yoga, and metaphysics are systemized, and Ayurveda was refined. With these systems working, they often start to resist change, becoming hardened over time, becoming rigid, doctrine, and order becomes control, in which why the golden ages always slide into imperial or dogmatic ages. An age in which power concentrates at the top, institutions expand, the bureaucracy grows, the system no longer trusts individuals, it trusts structure, where order is prioritized over wisdom. Living knowledge becomes doctrine. Philosophy becomes ideology. Spirituality becomes religion. Science becomes reductionist, oftentimes leading to territorial expansion, cultural dominance, forced conformity, and suppression of alternatives. Identity becomes fixed. Institutions become sacred. With examples of this being the late Roman Empire with a massive bureaucracy, currency debasement, military overextension, and their distrust in leadership. Or in the medieval Christendom, where doctrine replaced direct experience, authority replaced inquiry, and territorial expansion and cultural dominance occurred. While the imperial ages are stable, they are also suffocating. People feel alienated, disempowered, and spiritually disconnected. And so, as life is adaptive, these rigid systems are not, always leading into a collapse. But before, usually an age of a massive technological advancement and growth, called the later imperial or technocratic age, occurs, where a civilization reaches the peak of its power, efficiency, and complexity, with global influence, centralized power, ideological certainty, and system-wide control. The late stage and the collapse age is where the system outgrows themselves. After an imperial or dogmatic age reaches its peak, something subtle but decisive happens. The system does not fall apart immediately, it overextends. This is what historians call a late stage period, the phase right before the collapse. The civilizations are usually incredibly advanced, too complex to manage, too abstract to feel human, and too large to adapt quickly. Systems require specialists just to understand them. The institutions lose their legitimacy, which may still exist and function, but their trust erodes. And in the late stage, systems rely on numbers to maintain control, productivity over well-being, growth over sustainability, efficiency over humanity, and data over wisdom. One of the clearest late-stage signals is that the tools evolve faster than ethics. Innovation outpaces integration. Technology accelerates fast. And when collective narrative collapse, identity follows. Late-stage ages show anxiety epidemics, depression, meaning crisis, polarization, and identity fragmentation. Historical examples being the late Roman Empire, the late medieval Europe, and the late Qing dynasty, which collapse created space for modernization. Now, these collapses do not happen in an instant, but create the conditions that make a renaissance possible. When civilization collapses or enters the late stage, several things happen at once. Centralized authority weakens, dogma loses credibility, old identities dissolve, certainty collapses, power decentralizes. And so after a collapse, the only thing that can follow is the Renaissance, which requires things that cannot exist inside a rigid system. Independent thinking, creative experimentation, spiritual decentralization, re-examination of truth, and return to lived experience. The collapse is the ego death of a civilization. The Renaissance, known for its art, geniuses, and cultural beauty, are just the expressions. But this age is a moment of remembering. With the collapse removing the barriers that suppresses geniuses, the Renaissance serves three functions: the remembering, the collective revival of buried or ignored texts, suppressed philosophies, forgotten sciences, and embodied knowledge. 2. Authority is decentralized. Truth stops flowing from the top down, but the individuals interpret scripture, artists express inner worlds, scientists question assumptions, and thinkers cross disciplines. 3rd, creativity explodes, becoming an exploration behind meaning, identity, reality, and consciousness. With clear historical examples being the European Renaissance with people like Da Vinci and Michelangelo, which followed the Black Death, church corruption, and feudal collapse, or the Song Dynasty in China, or the Bhakti Renaissance in India. Renaissance is not the end of the cycle, it is a transition. What follows a Renaissance is what historians often call an enlightened or integration age, in which understanding catches up to creativity. As the integration age of enlightenment is the phase in which ideas become systems. creativity becomes structure, insight becomes method, and freedom becomes responsibility. Knowledge becomes methodical. Institutions are rebuilt, not restored. Individual agencies is normalized. And ethics catch up to power. With historical examples of this age being the European Enlightenment following the Renaissance and Scientific Revolution, or the Neo-Confucian integration, where Confucianism integrated Taoism and Buddhism. As an Enlightenment always follows the Renaissance, as it breaks the walls, but Enlightenment builds the bridge. This does not end history, but becomes the seed for the next foundational age, returning the cycle to the beginning phase. Now that we have an understanding of the themes and patterns of the historical cycles, you might have already started to see where this might connect to our modern world, as I want us to explore the themes that we are seeing being played out and how we may be living through a neo-Renaissance. To see this clearly, let us walk through the recent American history. Starting off with the beginning of America history, where colonial and gaining independence was the beginning for a foundational age. New identity formed, which rejected old European structures. Survival and coherence were prioritized, and myths of freedom, the New World, and the American dreams were born and emphasized, leading to the Classical or Golden Age phase, from the early expansion to the post-Civil War growth. Fitting into this age of national identity stabilizing, institutions maturing, infrastructure expanding, the belief in progress and order, and the shared narrative about destiny and purpose, with key features of railroads, cities, and industries, expansion of education, and the crystallization of the American dream, leading us into the imperial and dogmatic age, where America becomes an empire, from around the World War era through this Cold War, with the military dominance, the global influence, the centralized authority, and the ideological certainty that we are the good guys, and the systems hardening around power. Bringing America into that technocratic age of the massive technological expansion. Bureaucracy grew, corporation power rised, consumerism replaced meaning, and metrics replaced wisdom. With a crazy scientific revolution and technological advancements, suburbanization, productivity culture, and economic growth equaling moral good, in which this is what we are currently in and seemingly phasing out of. As now, through the collapse phase, the institutions are starting to be distrusted. No one is believing in the government after the multiple stunts of control. The narrative is fragmented to be these extreme polarities, with a mental health crisis and identity fragmentation, the ecological strain and the disconnection from nature, from the amount of energy we consume and the destruction of nature, with the information overload with the internet and social media, and having to have experts in such niche topics of isolation, and the technological acceleration outpacing ethics, which we can easily see with AI and social media. But what is very interesting is that these ages, the phases seen in society, do not all of a sudden just switch, but they blend together. And so with this transition period we call the collapse, we're also beginning to see the emergence of an American Renaissance. With the decentralization of authority, people moving to social media accounts and accounts written by the people, rather than the centralized authority, along with this explosion of independent creation, as the Renaissance creates individual creators, not just consumers. The revival of embodied and inner sciences through meditation, breathwork, yoga, nervous system regulation, and etc., and the integration of science and consciousness, reconnecting these domains, such as neuroscience and meditation, quantum biology, permaculture, and so much more. Individuals having to be multidisciplined to truly create change. The art is always the first to change, with art becoming more symbolic, mystical, and psychedelic, leading the innovation, bleeding out these ideas into civilization, with so many other signs showing this occurrence. And so it is an important question to ask. Do you think most of the people who are living in a Renaissance knew they were living through it, especially during the early ages of it? And to imagine what the age of integration would look like after this one. While every Renaissance in history follows this basic pattern, none of them happen in the conditions we are living through now, which is why this new Renaissance will be fundamentally different. Past Renaissance were regional and slower, such as the European Renaissance happening mostly in Italy, or the Chinese Renaissance staying within the dynasty. But today, the culture is becoming global by default due to the advancements of technology through the internet. Rather than taking decades for ideas to spread, it merely takes seconds. What once required travel and translation now is done through the phone and attention. This global culture means cross-pollination at scale, where Western science meets Eastern consciousness, Buddhism meets neuroscience, yoga meets anatomy, indigenous wisdom enters modern frameworks. And so with the United States entering its Renaissance, it is this point in history which the global culture is at its highest. As the innovation of technology and art the United States has created influenced the world, with the USD playing a large role in the economic structure of the world's economy. Through the failing of the fiat currency that is currently happening, the distrust of the American government from all sides, to the psychological and survival demands of their people, we will see this explosion of not only just an American Renaissance, but a more collective global Renaissance, due to this global culture that was curated through the recent American innovations. As technology and AI pushes people out of this pointless desk job, pushing people more into the individual creative pursuits. With the financial option not tied to a government, but the globe through crypto, to the push into spirituality occurring throughout the globe itself. We are aligning a lot of these patterns to have a global Renaissance occur. This does not take away the ages in which other countries may be going through, but plays a role into the universal law as above, so below. As this plays out through all aspects of life, this cycle to enlightenment is not just a regional thing, it happens on all scales. From a personal scale to enlightenment, to subcultures within regions and countries, to even continents, global, and even solar systems run through this cycle. The study of this cycle has been happening throughout all of our known history, using the astrological science and math to see the pattern in which it plays out. While oftentimes in the modern world people see these ancient cultures as less advanced, this is far from the truth. There are so many structures and scientific understandings that modern world cannot explain. And yet, in all these systems, they have this consensus about the part of the astrological cycle of Earth and the pattern it is playing out, what is commonly referred to as the New Age. From the Mayan calendar, which tracks vast cycles of time, having a cycle end at 2012, or the yogis and their cosmology of the yugas shifting, or the prophecies of the eagle and the condor flying together from the Native Americans, and so many more African, Southern American, and other tribes all explain this shift happening on this planet, pairing up with this bubbling Renaissance starting to occur. Now the question becomes, what happens after? As the Renaissance is just a remembering, not the end. With many people seeing the intelligence of not only ancient cultures and their sciences, but the innate genius behind creation itself. And so with this reopening of perception, it dissolves these outdated identities, breaking the rigid structures and reintroduces forgotten wisdom. And so seeing this falling down of old structures and old systems and old powers, such as the US government as we know it, the fiat currency, the big industries, and dogmatic systems like the medical, news, and food industries, it will start being replaced by decentralized industries, which we are already seeing and being adopted. More and more people are losing their jobs, but simultaneously, more entrepreneurs and more self-employment. There's more decentralized medical help, news, and systems run by communities and individuals. along with its collapsing of the financial system, with the answer already gaining its early traction, to the US government being so desperate to try to hold on to power, doing more and more intense actions grasping onto that old power, to even down to the people and their psychology, mental health, and spirituality. We are all seeing this shift occur. As who knows what the next phases of this neo-renaissance and enlightenment integration really has in store. But I believe we are in these early stages, starting to see the glimpses become movements of these evolutionary cycles. But what is even more important is not to resist this change, but to flow with life's patterns, meaning ego death of society will occur, and a global one for a global renaissance. Many people will come face to face with their own ego, experiencing psychological death just to flow with life and time. This burst of realization that leads one into the Renaissance and into enlightenment. That's it for today's video. Like, subscribe, leave any comments, questions, or topics you want me to talk about. Thanks for watching. Till next time, peace.